It is 3:05 p.m. Eastern, 12:05 Pacific. I'm Ben Coombs. You got my name half right the last time you called me out.
No,
to my good guest here,
it
the
just
man
does.
himself. Oh, I know. I see. That's half the fun. You get the pass. So, everyone, we've got Phillip McKnight in the house. Yay!
How's it going, everyone?
How is everyone doing? Man, we got all kinds of people in chat. I'm just going to do a quick roll call here. Let's see. First in the chat, we had Joe Hervey 84. We've got my good friend Dane at Zim's Guitars, where I'm going to be on his channel in a couple of days, roughly around this time of day. We've got Todd Flowers in the house, who's a supporter of both of our channels.
He is.
Layla's Guitar Daddy, Double D Guitar, Jay Steen, Phil Mosley Music himself out of the UK, James Wright, Brad Miller, Brian Landreth, Gary Tholander, scrolling down, Dwight Bailey. It's nice to see Brian Landreth has internet again. Randy Crooks. There is the man himself, Lawrence Petross Design, Bearded Blues Dude, Albus Band, Lars Guitars. Wow, my chat just scrolled ahead. Lefty Mike. And a bunch of Riley, if I missed you already. Dwight Bailey, Lars Guitars. I think I got pretty much everybody here. Metalhead Hippie, Janice. Hello one, hello all. Dale Palmer, Denny Allen. Nice, bunch of people jumping in. So, you've been a busy man. We've been talking about doing this since January.
Yeah.
I've been busy, you've been busy. The life of YouTubers.
Yeah.
You did make a cameo in the one NAMM vlog.
Oh, that's true. That's true. It's the life of the one-man job. You know, right? Yeah.
Wow, we've got a question already in the chat. Riley asks, could you ask Phil if Grover Roto Grip locking tuners will drop straight into my Epiphone Sheridan?
That would depend on whether or not your Epiphone Sheridan has Grover tuners already.
Right.
So if it does, they'll direct fit. The only Grovers, there's only two really Grovers you have to worry about, the minis and the full-size ones. So, and generally, an Epiphone will have the full-size ones. The minis are usually on something like if they have an Explorer or something where they want the tuners to be a little smaller. So if it has Grovers now, you can put the lockers in there and you'll be good. If it has generic ones, which a lot of the generic tuners are copies of Godot's. That's where most generic tuning keys design comes from.
Right.
And so then the only issue will be where that, I call it the ear, you know what I mean? The ear, the tab that pops off the tuner, if it's straight down or if it's to the side. So that's the issue. If you, like I said, if you have Grovers and had Grovers before, I would do that. If you haven't bought the Grovers and you're worried about that, just like I said, especially if they're like I said, they're the Godot copies, I would go with either like Hipshot or Ratio that have those plates, or just find your type of tuning key with a locking mechanism. Because there's every kind of 10 years ago, not even 20, 10 years ago, it was not like this. There is no tuning key that I can conceive right now on a guitar that there isn't a better gear ratio locking version of at this point.
Right. I agree.
So, yeah.
I agree.
So you just find the ones that fit and pop them in.
That's true. Hey, we got a few more people jumping in. There's Ben Henry. Great name. Will Varela. Let's see here. I did see. Where was it here? There it is. Brian Landreth. And we can flash it up on the screen here. Question for Phil. What was your MOS? I've been curious. MOS.
Oh, yeah. 63 Hotel. And then when I got out of active duty, I went in the reserves. And the reserves, at that point, I was working on like Himmets and M88 recovery vehicles. And when I went into the reserves after active duty, which I did like 8 years of reserves after active duty. You know, I stayed in. And what happened was, I don't know why the story is relevant. I'm just going to tell you. When I got out of active duty, I went in reserves. They had no combat units in the reserves anymore. They did away with them. So everybody in the Army reserves now, as far as I know, it's still the same way, is either a medic or a truck driver or a clerk, right? They don't have combat MOSs, and because there's no combat MOSs, There's no support combat MOSs in the reserves for the most part. So the reason I'm telling you the story is because I have 2 MOSs, 63 Hotel, but then when I went into reserves, I had to go back into training and do 63 Whiskey. So and then in the reserves, I worked on Humvees. It was a very, it's the reserves. We moved furniture, played basketball, worked on Humvees. This is pretty much what we did.
We got another question here. Shizzo in Stereo. Interesting name. I like it. And welcome. New name in the chat. What sounds less boxy, a Blues Junior or a 68 Princeton? I would think the Princeton off the top of my head.
Sounding less boxy?
Yeah.
Yeah. I hear that term a lot, explaining like Hot Rod Deluxes and Blues Juniors as being a boxy kind of sound. And I actually love that we use flavors and shapes to explain sounds, right? It's one of the things that make guitar players and musicians just so kooky and crazy, right? I love it when people say that. Don't you get that in your videos? Like, what do you mean it sounds hot? Like, I don't, it's one of those things, like, I don't know how to explain it to you, but I know most musicians will understand what I mean when I say these.
Well, that's I have a tendency, I would say every fourth demo of a product, I make up a word. Like with fuzzes, I start saying fizzle because it's fizzy and sizzle. So I'm like, fizzle? Is that even a word? And I just leave it in the video and I'm like, comment below if fizzle's actually a word.
Yeah, everything's a word now. You just put it in the internet. But I would agree. I think the Blues Junior would be the more boxy sounding of the two. To me, the big difference would be the Princeton has a sound. That's the difference to me. The Princeton is like you could name records, you know what I mean? Where you're like, that's the Princeton sound. You know what I mean? Where the Hot Rod Deluxe and the Blues Junior, which are some of my favorite Fender amps, and eventually I think they'll become iconic. You know what I mean? Because they're another thing that's been used so much that at some point they just become, staples of guitar players.
Sure.
Those are, to me, though, as much as I like those 2 amps, they have a less of a staple sound. You know what I mean? So I just thought I'd share that. Because I play a Princeton most of the time, and that's a question I get a lot. Like, why Princeton over the Hot Rod Deluxe or Blues Junior? Because I know I've had those in the past too, and I got rid of them, and I got the Princeton. And it's literally just because when I play my Princeton, it's like when that first chord I play, I hear old albums and stuff that I love, sounds that I love. So
I agree on that. Metalhead Hippie says, ask Phil what sets his channel aside from others. How did he find his niche?
Oh, that's man, you guys are cool. These are cool. These are crazy questions. I like that question because I have no problem explaining this. My channel, when I started it, and I've said before, but then there's stuff I don't think I've said before. So it'll be interesting to talk about this. I've explained before that when I started my channel, I had no idea what a YouTuber was. I mean, I was watching guys on YouTube, and I realized they were making videos, but I had no concept that anybody would watch mine, right? And I think I told this story, but I'll just say it real fast because it's an important part of my channel. I started making videos on Facebook. They weren't on YouTube, and they were specifically for my friend Matt. My buddy Matt, who's a hand surgeon, he would drive across town and ask me questions, and he would film my answers so that when he went back home, he'd have the answers to the question.
Sure.
And I thought one day I said to him, I said, well, you don't have to do this. Just ask me the question. He would text me the question, and I would make a video and put it on Facebook.
Right.
And it's a really interesting story because the first time, I think on Facebook, I noticed there was like 1,000 views on the video. And I was like, wow, that's more people than I know. Like, that's definitely something happened because it's outside the realm of, you know what I mean? Your friends and stuff. And somebody asked me, could I put it on YouTube so that they could download it, you know what I mean? And watch it when they want, right? And so I created a channel called Phillip McKnight, and I just uploaded a couple of them on there.
Sure.
And so that's how the channel happened. I was just doing this thing. It wasn't conscious, that I was doing this. However, to answer the question, what separates my channel from everybody else, I don't know that answer, because that's, you know, it's a tough thing to say. But what I can tell you is how I started the channel concept in my head. To me, on YouTube at that time, you definitely had, you know, Chappers. I mean, he was huge, you know, Lee and Chappers. You had the Tone King, you had Gearman Dude, you had Shane and the Blues, you had Scott Grove, right? And Scott Grove was the interesting anomaly for me, because he had, in my opinion, all the information. That guy knew what he was talking about, and he was disseminating the information, and he would do two things that I didn't like. And I don't mean that to be, you know, nitpicky, because I don't like being nitpicked either, but it's just important for the story. My buddy Joe said this, and I agree. He would take 40 minutes to tell you something that could take 10, right? And that's his style, and that's good for him. And obviously I still watch his videos. So that was one thing I go, oh, I could do that, but I could condense just to the topic. Right. So that was the second. And the other thing was, I don't have a problem with him cursing. That's not the issue. The problem was, he wasn't very, in my opinion, inclusive. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it was, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that works for him. The thing is, I thought, well, if I'm going to take that attitude, which is, I want to give information like he's doing, but what if I shorten it down and sweeten it up a little bit, right? So that's essentially where the channel came from, was how do I take what he's doing, and essentially now I could say, you know, and make it my own. But at the time, which is why I'm telling you this story, I wasn't conscious that I was making it my own. At that time, I was just chopping off the bits I didn't like, right? Or I thought, you know, would be different, and I focused it that way. So that's what I did. What makes my channel different? I know what helps and hurts my channel, if that helps. My channel is extremely diverse in the content it creates. And the reason I know that is because that is the reason why my subscriptions are extremely low versus my views. To most people, you look at like 200,000 subscribers and go, that's huge. There is very few guitar channels with as many views as me that don't have at least double my subscribers. And the reason is because I churn an insane amount of subscribers, because I'll do, if you look at my videos, I'll do how to fix videos, and I'll get somebody subscribing for that. And then the next video I do is like a review, and they don't like that, so they unsubscribe. But if somebody watches that first review video, they do. So because I do like reviews, industry information videos, then we're like repair videos. So that is definitely unique, because I know it's unique because it's actually against what YouTube, you know, because when you get certain size of channel, YouTube starts giving you information. And most of the information I've gotten from YouTube is I'm running my channel wrong. I should pick a lane and stay in it. But I do that because that's for me. I burn out.
And I know the same thing. I agree, because, hey, when I started, I said I wanted to be the next you, because you do cover a lot of bases. You do the how-to stuff. You do the informational stuff. You do the demos, the live stream, which is more community-based, we'll say. And I know, like, for me, you set your channel apart for the fact that it was your 5 things videos. A lot of those, because, you know, it was one of those, you're watching YouTube, you're going to go out in a little while. Well, I'm not going to sit and watch half of a half-hour demo video, but hey, that 5 things video is 6 minutes, and 1, it was entertaining, and 2, I usually learned something as well. So it was a nice combination of entertainment and information. And next thing I know, I became subscribed, started watching your community stuff, like the live streams. But I think part of that too, when you say with subscribers, is people use YouTube in 2 ways. One, like Facebook, like this. It's interactive, it's community, it's social media. Then there's the folks that just use YouTube like Google. They need answers to something, and that's where it's going to be a product demo, and they're not necessarily going to subscribe to us.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. But I think what's important is that, and to me, and I think this way for you too, right? The way you create your channel, I notice it in your channel, which is, I'm really looking for, I don't dare say friends. I don't want to be so out in the open, you know what I mean, on the internet, you know, but you're looking for comrades, right? So as much as I'm trying to entertain people, and you're doing the same thing, I can tell when I watch your channel, you're trying to entertain people. I'm trying to entertain people, trying to teach something that you may know, right? Kind of like to give back. Hey, I've learned a lot. Here's what I know, right? Why don't we all share information?
Sure.
And a lot of it has to do with just your job. You know what I mean? I love it when a cop has a YouTube channel and he's telling you, about his job, or a fireman, or a pilot. To me, it's like if you repair guitars and you share some repair information, that's just fun. It doesn't mean that you're the best. It just means this is what I do. I don't know if you guys know how I do it, but this is how I do it. But what's interesting to me is in that entertainment aspect, you're also trying to find comrades, people that think like you, maybe enjoy what you enjoy.
Right.
Because I feel like, and I've said this definitely before, I feel like until maybe the store at first, right? Having the store was the first step. But until then, I always felt isolated. You know what I mean? Because unlike, and I use this just because it's a great analogy, when I have friends that are into sports, man, it's like if I meet 10 dudes at a party, 8 of them are into sports and they just have a nice, great conversation.
Right.
And none of them are guitar players but me. So I just sit there and I can't talk about the thing I love. We talk about sports. And then as you get older, sports turns into either politics or sports.
Yeah.
And what was always tough for me is I have no interest in either one. So I would hang out with mostly people who were interested in these two things that I wasn't. And those days for me are gone. I spend most of my time now talking about music and guitars.
Yep.
And that to me is more valuable than anything else YouTube has given me, is the fact that now I have like these comrades. Like you know what I mean? I can talk guitars now wherever I go. It's awesome.
That's true. That's true. And yeah, like say, and like for me, pretty much since day one, I've been doing these interview, hangout, whatever you want to call it. And as a result, you build these friendships that much more. It's like having a phone call as opposed to a text chat. You can talk a lot more if you're physically talking on the phone, and you just keep in touch and stuff, or randomly meet up at events like we did at Winter NAMM. It's like, hey, there's Phil McKnight. Walk up, and you knew who I was, I knew who you were, and we had a great chat. And
if you notice, what I love about that is what we don't do is the introduction, which is what makes those experiences amazing.
Yeah.
When you bump into, like I said, all these people that from YouTube, or like I said, I don't even have to, we don't even have to know each other from our channels. I know we've kind of talked about this off the air a little bit too, which is when you bump into somebody's like, oh, I watch your channel. It's not about like, oh, you watch my channel, and now there's this relationship of viewer and content creator. It's all of a sudden it's like, oh, we both obviously enjoy the same things. Right. We don't have to agree. They don't have to like Strats over Les Pauls or vice versa, but it doesn't matter. Just that first 5-second introduction means we can now and talk about, what we like talking about.
Exactly.
Instead of like, well, where do you live? What are you into? What do you like? You know what I mean? And this, right. It's just immediately like, what kind of guitar do you play? Because you already know they're a guitar player.
Right.
So
yeah, you have that instant bond, and there's always a topic to talk about. So, which is nice. Aaron from Elvis Band says, you and I are proof of what you're saying. Yeah, exactly. Like he and I met in a chat. He started watching my stuff. I started following his stuff. And next thing you know, we went to Nashville together, and hung out. And it was a great road trip for a week. So
yes,
and you create a lot of good memories from that. Joe Hervey was asking, do you have any plans to do more Harley Benton reviews?
Yeah, I'm going to do. So my issue with the Harley Bentons at this point, and I've been talking to Benedict, that's the guy who runs Harley Benton for Tolman. When I reached out to them, I said, I specifically spent, I think a month looking at hundreds of Harley Benton videos, trying to figure out the ones that weren't really covered, right? And that was the acoustic and the cabinets, and that's why I did those. And then after I think I tapped into what I hoped was at that point unique, right? I wanted to tap into what isn't unique, to add my 2 cents to the pile, right? So like, for instance, there's the Fusion behind me right there. Okay. So I had him send the Fusion because that's a question everybody has. And I had him send, I forget what model it is, but it looks like a PRS. and the PRS I got is damaged. That's what I kind of alluded to when I did my acoustic review about their shipping being really bad. The guitar is damaged. And it's been a slow process to get that swapped. So I don't have that to review yet. I have the Fusion. The Fusion, what happened was I actually reviewed it and I went to release it. I was timed and set in my schedule to release when I was in Germany. And when I was in Germany, I bought an AZ. Okay. So my brain immediately went, oh my goodness, there's no way if that video comes out with the Fusion, everybody isn't going to go, how is it compared to your AZ? Because the AZ is $2,000 and that was $400. That's a question I think everybody would like to know. How does it compare to the $2,000 guitar?
Right.
So now I have to reshoot the video. What I did was, laziness sometimes is always a bad, well, it's not only a bad excuse, it's a bad idea. I tried to record some of the Fusion and then edit them in together. Sometimes that works. It was a disaster, so I have to do it from scratch. So that's the next one I'm doing, the Fusion. And then Harley Benton reached out to me, which is funny because as we're talking about my damaged one, they want to send me their new, they have some new Gibson style copies, right?
Okay.
That they asked if I was curious about. I haven't responded yet, but that'll be probably next because I think the whole part of the Harley Benton's excitement is these are obtainium, is a word I like. Unobtainium and obtainium. Everybody can get their hands on a Harley Benton guitar, which I think is why they're so heavily watched.
Okay. Hey, Lando, he says, good thing your names are on the screen. I'd be lost. I know. 2 peas in a pod. And Will, could you ask your question again? We've got a bunch of questions in here, and I missed it, but I do want to ask it again. We did have a question regarding a Champ X2. What would be a good replacement speaker for it?
Well, it depends. Is it I assume it's the combo, so it's a 110-inch speaker?
Yes. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it was the combo.
Yeah. It depends, and here's why it depends. It depends on what side of the amp you love more. So if you're into the clean channel and driving that, you know what I mean? Getting that tube sound out of it, I would go with something like a Alnico Blue, right? Speaker or something like that. Something that you're going to get this cool retro tone out of it. And there's a ton of them like that in the 10-inch realm, but the Alnico Blue is definitely a cool one. And then after that, you know, maybe like I'm a Celestion guy more than anything else, but you know, some kind of other Celestion type breakup speaker, maybe something like a greenback, you know, 10-inch speaker. Sure. But I would probably still pick the Blue. However, if you're really into the modeling side of the amp, I would then go the opposite route. I would go with an Eminence, something that has a lower in frequency, will fill up the room with more sound, and it doesn't really have to worry about the cone speaker distorting because you want to actually just take the sound from the amp and amplify that out, and that's what a thicker cone like a Governor or a Raging Cajun or something like that would do. Sure. Those are the ones I've experimented with in the past with that amp and had good luck. So, you know, I end up personally liking the Eminence side because I tend to use the modeling side of that amp.
Okay.
Because, and just because it's always nice to know why, because if I drive that clean channel, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to use my Princeton. You know what I mean? So if I didn't have the Princeton, I would probably use it more like a Princeton.
Terry says you did a great job with Glenn on the Harley Benton cabs.
Oh, yeah. You know what's funny is Glenn's always a crack up.
Yeah.
Because I love telling everybody this. I tell him all the time. Every time I see Glenn, when we were hanging out at NAMM show with summer, I tell everybody, you know, I love him because one thing I get a lot when I meet people outside the channel is like, hey, you're a lot like your channel. And I go, yeah. And Glenn to me is the opposite of that. He's not like his channel. Glenn is a sweetheart. Like that's the funny thing. So what's funny is I love doing videos with Glenn because I think people look at it as like Phil and, you know, like the dark side and the light side kind of meet, you know what I mean? And what's funny about that is in person, Glenn is just a nice person.
He is. I ran into him at Summer NAMM and he's like, yeah, I remember talking to you back at Winter NAMM. I'm like, we talked for 30 seconds, but it's like, Oh, right. You're the other long-haired Canadian YouTuber. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's Nick Johnston. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. So it's always funny that he's, you know, that on his show, he's so intense and
Yep.
screams and stuff. And he does do that in real life. Don't get me wrong. He has that side of him. That's not a shtick. He really does get upset, and you will hear about it. You know, I've been present when he's telling off somebody, and it's not the prettiest thing to watch. However, that is not his default position, is what I'm trying to get. And with his personality, his default position, the majority of the time, he's just this laid back, cool, happy-go-lucky guy. You know what I mean?
Yep. Hey, Sean Pierce Johnson.
Yeah. Hey, Sean, what's up?
Will Varela says, does Phil prefer amps as opposed to modeling amps as opposed to the Helix? Thanks.
Oh, easy. I prefer amps by far. And, but I have been doing so much modeling this year. Currently, you know, I have the Helix LT, and I have the More G300 and 200 that I'm A-Bing with the Helix. And the thing with that stuff is I find that stuff is amazing, the Helix stuff, right? I don't have an opinion like, oh, it's just not right. I have an opinion of, I guess my opinion is simple. I would rather always have an amp, but I could totally understand why you would be okay with a modeling system.
Right.
And what I'm doing right now is inspired by Ryan at 60 Cycle Hum. He had this cool rig. So I was, the best idea is you should always try to adapt them or steal them or learn from them, all the above. He has a portable rig that he takes with his Helix Stomp.
The one that may or may not have been designed by Andy.
Right. see how funny, right? So what's funny, though, is I actually did not enjoy the Helix Stomp because even though I thought it sounded just as good as the Helix, it sounds the same. In fact, I should probably say sounds the same. Not even, they're great. I really didn't like the fact that I couldn't access the looper in that thing without adding some extra control. And if anyone knows, somebody's really got it. I messed with mine for, I think 20 days, you know what I mean? Because that's what happened. I was trying to decide, is this the thing I want? You know what I mean?
Right.
And because it was $600, it was a lot for the Helix Stomp. You know what I mean? $600 for that pedal. It was a lot of money. And the one thing I wanted was to take it with me, like what he was doing as a catch-all, do everything thing. And I use a looper all the time. So now I have the G200 by More because it has the looper built into it and it was accessible. So to answer your question, I use both, but I prefer amps by far.
Sure. Riley, who I believe is also out of the UK. Question for Phil. Have you had any experience with the Big Joe Stomp Box Company B502 Empire pedal? Is it worth the money?
Okay. So I know what the Empire pedal is, and I'm pretty sure I have a video on it, but because you said B502, I'm like, I better double check this.
Sure.
You know how that works.
Well, thanks. Cowtown Custom says, loving this show. Awesome.
Okay, the Big Joe B502. Yes. I actually have a review of that pedal. And it was one of my earliest videos back in the day. So if you Google it, I did a video of it. Absolutely love that pedal. What's funny was when I reviewed that pedal, that was a time, like I regret not having it. I don't have that pedal anymore, but I don't have it because at that time when I reviewed it, that you'll see when you look at the video, you'll see the channel was really new. That was back when I reviewed stuff like that. And as soon as you reviewed it, you then sold it, took the money and bought another piece of gear, and then sold that and bought another piece of gear. That's how you start out. And that's why sometimes when we talk about companies, sending you gear and stuff, that's to alleviate the stress of the, you buy a pedal for $250, you sell it for $150, you're out $100, you make $5 on the video, but you want to make content, you know what I mean? So you just kept doing that stuff. So that pedal I sold, but not because I didn't love it. I still love it and miss it. It was a great pedal.
Sure. I know the same thing. I actually was Shane from In the Blues said last year to help get started doing the demos. He said, start demoing your own gear.
Yep.
And make it unique. So I made a separate playlist from other demos and it's called My Gear. So it'll be my Electro-Harmonic Soul Food, as opposed to just a generic title. And it seems to have worked somewhat. So
it is the best way. And sadly enough, it's one of those things that's the way things I wish they are versus the way they are. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I used to watch, well, I mean, I shouldn't say used to, but there's a channel called, what's it called? Like Cut It in Half or What's Inside. You guys know what I'm talking. It's a large channel on YouTube. Huge, right? And they cut everything they get, they cut it in half. You know what I'm talking about? Have you seen this channel?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So like they did a video one day, and I remember this video, and this is the video that really kind of hit it home in our arena for me, the difference between the guitar community and the real world. There's a channel, and it's like, What's Inside? I think it's called What's Inside. And they buy the new Apple. This is an older video, but this is the important part of the story. They buy the new Apple laptop. It's like a $1,500 laptop. They take it home and they cut it in half and they show you what's inside. Okay. And I watch the comments, you know, of course the comments are like, these guys are morons. Why did they do that? Oh my God, this is crazy. And all I could see, so you know, was, wow, 23 million views. Let's see, that's 30 grand. That's why they cut it in half. They spent $1,500 a day and they made 30 grand.
Yeah.
Right. So essentially, I'm not saying you should cut stuff in half. What I'm saying is that there are arenas on YouTube, which are not the guitar community because we're too small, where you can go to the Best Buy, buy the new iPhone, do a video, and the video pays for the phone.
Right.
There is almost no video. If you go and buy a $100 Boss pedal where you can put it on, review it, and make enough to pay for the pedal. And that's why, like I said, at some point, that's why everybody ends up having to build some kind of relationship with companies, because you got to subsidize this stuff.
Yeah.
And the problem is where this is broken. I don't want to get too preachy on this, but where it's really broken is we should be working with the retailers. That's the people that we should be working with, because then you're not aligned with any one company. I don't have to worry about pissing off Fender or Gibson or PRS or anybody, because the retailer isn't going to care. They just want to, you know what I mean? They're going to, but the problem with us in the gear community is the retailers as a whole really don't understand the communities yet. Some are dabbling with it. Some aren't even interested in it at all.
Yeah.
You know, and as my channel's gotten bigger, and a lot of YouTubers that are even bigger than me, we've actually had meetings with these bigger retailers, and saying, hey, look, you know, you understand that if you shipped me, I'll use myself because that way I don't have to talk about somebody else, you know, and that was in the meeting. If you ship me the new Boss GT 5000, whatever, and I review it, you understand that there's somebody out there would probably like to buy the one I reviewed. So you could then sell that, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be able to move on to my next video. And if I make $33.14 off that video, that's in my pocket. That's, you know what I mean? And I'm playing the game of some videos make 100, some make 500, some make $10, but that's the game I'm in. So I just make content that I find is interesting. And then hopefully when it connects with the audience, you get a little dividend from that.
Sure.
But as the retailers, they're not really set up that way yet.
Right.
So hopefully that's where we end up. I'm thinking that's where this eventually all goes. You know what I mean? And then that way we don't have to, like, you know, call Boss and be like, hey, can I get a pedal sent out to me so I can review it?
Exactly. Phil Mosley Music has a question. See,
what's up, Phil?
We all get tongue-tied.
Yes.
Question for both of you: what piece of gear were you most excited to get that then completely let you down or wasn't what you thought it was? Ooh. I don't think I've ever been really let down by a piece of gear. As far as what it was, I can go with the, what is it called? The Moon American Sound, because I totally misunderstood the pedal. I thought it was an overdrive pedal. It's really more of an amplifier preamp circuit that you can use as a virtual amp. So I was like, yeah, it sounds all right. It has a decent breakup. This does this, this does that. And then in the comments section is just like, oh, it actually does this. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I've unfortunately, we've all done that. We've done a product where you didn't understand it yet. You know what I mean? And and me, and so might be a piece of advice for Ben, but the rest of the audience can do with it too. You'll notice that as your channel grows and companies do want to send you a product to review, that's where those mistakes I made early on were you get the product, and I like to sit with the product for a month. A lot of people are frustrated, especially because of the live shows. I get that. I totally feel for everybody on this. They'll go, hey, it's been 7 weeks and you still have that thing behind you. Why haven't you reviewed it? And you're like, hey, look, it's not like I'm making a review every day. Obviously, I make like 2 reviews or 2 videos a week. And my point is, I don't do the review until I feel like I know what's going on, till I know I've gotten past the honeymoon phase, till I feel like this is what I'm saying makes sense now, till I feel like I not so much be an authority on the product, but at least communicate something about the product that is useful besides. That's why sometimes I like doing unboxing videos, because they're very low stress for me. I just open the box and I give you my first responses to it. But what I've learned is from doing unboxings, although they're heavily watched and they're fun to make, they are always weird, because when I look back at unboxings, months later, that's not what I think of the product now. You know what I mean? Yep. Which is why I started doing what I do one every year. At the end of the year, I review all my reviews for the year.
Sure.
To recap what happened. But the reason I'm telling you the story, and this is why it's good for Ben, is you'll get a product and then immediately sometimes the companies start pounding you with emails. Hey, is that video up yet? Hey, I saw you sign for it 3 days ago. Yeah. And now I know better. I'm like, yeah, it'll get done when it gets done, or you can RA it back anytime. You know what I mean? Yep. If your agenda is not my agenda. You know what I mean? But at the beginning, that would always lead to some kind of mistake. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I would put out the video too soon.
And I want to thank Upside Down, donated to the cause here. He says, great show tonight, guys. Thank you very much, Upside Down. And Sean Pierce Johnson says, I've been slowly working on some relationships with retailers, some good ideas being worked out. Yeah, I'm doing my whole, Ben will tell you this, when I was at Nashville, everybody was trying to talk to me at the NAMM show, but I wasn't at the NAMM show. I just was poking around the NAMM show because I was at meetings. The meetings I had were with retailers. They were all there. They wanted to have the meetings. All the meetings were about what I was talking about earlier. Right. Relationship with YouTubers. How would that work? What would be the benefits to the retailers? What's the benefit to the YouTubers? This is because it's a controversial topic. So, and as you know, I don't really have a problem talking about anything live. So, especially on my channel instead of your own.
Yeah. Because again, the problem is, just because I say it would be great to work with retailers, not everybody would think the same thing, right? Not everybody, some people like the relationships they have with companies, and I like some of the relationships I have with companies. But like I said, I'm trying to figure out an arrangement where I can get access to product. I would love it. See, if every time somebody on YouTube, a viewer, said, hey, Phil, I'd like to see you check out the new blah, blah, blah. It would be great if all that was just an email to a retailer. Hey, send this out next week and I'll review it, because people are interested in it right now. It's a great topic to have right now. I'll get views because it's exciting right now, which those views will help me financially with my channel. And whether I like it or not won't affect my relationship with a company, right? And what's funny is and so and I'm always weary about when I say this particular thing, I have damaged or destroyed so many relationships with companies, it's not even funny. However, I will say this. The good news is that sometimes your relationships come back, right? I can think of right now, I won't say them, but there's 2 companies in my head right now that I know for a fact they told me off. You know what I mean? Right. They didn't like my video at all. And then a year or 2 later, now we're I'm doing reviews of their stuff again, because either people have changed in the company, or they've looked back and realized maybe that wasn't so bad what he said. Maybe it wasn't so horrible. Right. You know what I mean? Just because he mentioned, this or that, you know what I mean? It wasn't the end of the world. And so like I said, so Sean, yeah, I think it's going to be cool if we can get more retailers involved with reviews.
That's where I'm a little lucky in the fact that I got a friend who owns a few music stores, and basically I have carte blanche to demo any of his equipment. So I make sure that when I upload the video, I add the location of his music store as a little tidbit, and I'll say available at and mention his website. And, you know, and I just keep them simple, you know, guerrilla style. I'm out on the showroom. There's people walking around, but I kind of make fun of it. You know, it's like, hey, look it, I snuck into the music store again. I got this in my hand, you know, quick little 2 or 3 minute video. And seems to work pretty good.
Yeah, but see, do you find, this is where sometimes it's fun to see the back behind the scenes. I find that the reviews I do external, in other words, out of my home, are a different, not only vibe, but I'm different. Like the whole thing is different.
Yeah, I find I have much more energy when doing those ones.
Yeah,
hyper.
Yeah, I find that having it at here is always going to lead to a better review. Like I never really see anything I do external. Like when I go to another store, when I do it at the store, or if I do it at the NAMM show, or if I do it wherever these events, these YouTuber events are, I always feel like those videos are not reviews,
right?
As so much as a quick demonstration / you know, blast. Like it's a different, and it's good, but it's a different vibe. So sometimes, like, that's why I said it would be nice if the stuff always comes here, so you can, you know, especially since I always find that comparing it to something I like always centers it for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You know, I've said this with pedals. I like the SD1 by Boss. I've always liked the SD1 by Boss. I've done this so many times that it's disgusting. I bought a pedal at a store that was $200. Right. Got it home, playing it. I'm like, this is great. Where was this my whole life? And then after a couple hours, you calm down, right? You get the SD1 out, you A/B it, and you go, I don't know, is it better than my SD1? You know what I mean? You're like, I think it's better. It's a little better. And then you go, a little better. I think I paid $30 for my SD1. You know, you're like, how, you know, for $160 more, I was hoping it was going to be a lot better.
Brian Landreth says, as a follow-up to me, LOL, Ben, I'm just waiting for you to admit there is a fuzz you like. Because I'm not a fuzz pedal guy. However, he sent me a cheaper fuzz, and it in front of a low gain overdrive. I like it. I dig it. It's won me over. And I will say, as far as just a fuzz on its own, the Haunted Labs Carolina Reaper pedal. I love that pedal. And I was actually talking with, I believe his name is Chris, who owns that company. I was chatting with him a bit yesterday.
When I learned the trick to fuzz, this is the piece of advice I can give anybody about fuzz pedals. And once I learned this, I feel like it really decoded the mystery of fuzz, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because like you, I got into fuzz pedals maybe 5 years ago. Okay, so that's, I mean, percentage-wise, I think I've been playing 25 years. So I went 20 years and I didn't like fuzz pedals. Okay.
Right.
And fuzz pedals especially are always a problem for me because I love a lot of bands that use fuzz pedals. I love Slash. I like Weezer. I love Weezer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's not like I wasn't aware that fuzz could be used, you know, by like Hendrix and stuff in a good way. And fuzz would frustrate me because there's like a billion fuzz pedals, right? There's more fuzz pedals than anything else. And I'd always try to hunt for the right fuzz pedal until I decoded the mystery and figured it out for myself. And this is for myself, but maybe you guys will relate. I learned that fuzz pedals are never about the pedal. See, fuzz pedals are a complementary thing to the rig you're currently using.
Right.
So if you try to find a fuzz pedal and then put it in your rig, I feel like majority of the time you'll be unhappy with the result. But if you take your current rig and try to add a fuzz pedal to it,
right,
you will find that there is a sound that you can get. And you just kind of tapped on it just right before I started going in this little speech when you said using it in front of an overdrive. I learned for me personally, that is the fuzz I'm looking for. Yeah. Run into a light overdrive on the amp or a light overdrive pedal makes notes sound just huge.
Yeah, I find it brings back a lot of the mids that are missing in a lot of fuzz pedals, and you know, and a lot of it almost seemed like every fuzz that was coming out, it was way too much fuzz and very spitty sounding, and that kind of brought it back and tamed it. Where, because like I'm a big fan of the band Fu Manchu, so I want that heavy, fuzzy tone, but I don't want it to sound like a Hendrix Octafuzz or something like that. So,
well, see, and that becomes the problem. Like, for instance, I like Weezer, and they'll use a lot of fuzz, as well. But what I realize is I don't play. I'll play a Weezer song because we all play a song we like, but I don't write Weezer-esque type songs. You know what I mean? When I'm playing music for my own enjoyment, I think a lot of us, I play other people's songs in my room and I'm having fun, but a lot of time when I'm playing, I'm creating. You know what I mean? Even if I'm not actually trying to record the stuff or do anything with it, I'm just creating sounds and music. Sure. And that's why I said I had to learn to find the fuzz that fits my rig and does what it is. So.
And I wanted to put this up before it disappeared. Brian S. wants to say, please pass on my thanks to Phil for taking care of me at Summer NAMM, which allowed me to meet you and all the guys.
No problem, Brian. I'm sorry we didn't get to hang out more. We got to say hi and stuff. I literally, well, what happened was, I think Ben knows this too. The other thing that happened to me was I had traveled so much that my wife and daughter were like, when I said, oh, I'm going to the NAMM show, right?
Right.
They went with me. So I actually was at the NAMM show for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I flew in Wednesday though. And I was doing every other. So a day with my wife and daughter, a day at the show, doing the meetings and stuff. So it was, I kind of felt bad. I felt bad. Like I was watching you guys. You guys all look like you're having a blast. That I was like, man, I gotta go upstairs. I mean, I had to go like across the street to a hotel. I was always constantly on my way somewhere not as fun.
Right. Well, I had to watch my own daily vlog from the Saturday because I didn't go to NAMM the last day and we ended up hanging out on Broadway. And from the looks of that video, I had a pretty good time by 3 p.m.
And then Shizzo, I'll just sell this comment so I can answer it if it's okay with you.
Sure.
Shizzo in Stereo says, I bet Phil would love the Rev G2. Would you ever change your mind about Rev? Phil, yes. To answer your question, my Rev thing is, here's what I decided for me. I am not a huge fan of the Rev, and I'm horrible at the numbers. I think it's the G1. It's the purple. I didn't like the purple. It was too metal for me. And I already have a 5150 by MXR pedal, and I have a BE overdrive. I like them. If I'm going to use metal pedals, I have them. You're right. I tried the G2. I loved it. I think that's, but here's where I'm mistaken. Hold on a second. I want to say the right thing. Here's what I'm trying to say. I tried the red one. I liked it. So I'm the red guy now. But then they came out with the green one. I like the green one even more. So is that the G2? I like the green one the most, if that helps. I'm looking right now.
And thanks to everyone that is jumping in. I know a bunch of people have jumped in the last 10, 15 minutes that I haven't said hello to. So hello, one and all, like BV, Guitar Hack, My Knees Hurt. Several fine folks. We got 66 people watching here. Awesome.
So I am right. It is the green one. The green one is, so in order, I love the green one. I like the red one, and I'm not a huge fan of the purple one. However, I learned when I was at TGU that the purple one, it's like, to get it to where I liked it was you turn the gain at 0. And I like stuff like that now because I like, that's the whole, like, the know your gear, that thing was, it never occurred to me to take a pedal and put the gain on 0.
Right.
But that's where it sounded great to me. I thought the purple one sounded great with that.
Sure. And yes, I have been pinning questions, Crowbar. So if I do miss your question, ask again for sure. Thank you, Aaron. 65 watching, 32 thumbs ups. Nice.
Yeah.
Crowbar asks, question for Phil. While he owned a music store, how many guitars came in with unlevel frets and what brands were the biggest culprit? I feel that's way beyond standard setup.
Yeah, that's a good question.
So maybe what guitars may needed a little bit more QC on your end as opposed to just out of the box, great.
Sure. Well, obviously we would do a lot of that. You know what I mean? Now things changed throughout the years of having the store. The market's changed. When the store opened, which was 2005, I feel pretty safe saying this, 2005 to 2009 or 10. So the first 5 years of the store, we used to set up every single guitar we sold.
Okay.
That was the shtick, right?
Right.
We were only a guitar store. We sold a lot of guitars. Like I said, I always try to make sure, because there's viewers that watch this that were my old customers, and they know, like, when I downplay it sometimes. My store, we did sell a lot of guitars, right? We did have a good volume of guitar sales. So what happened was we used to set them all up, because that's how you won customers over. As the internet became more substantial, it, like all businesses, you started weighing the whole, wow, I'm selling guitars online now, and most of the people who are buying guitars against my store aren't getting setups included. So why am I doing this? So you would slowly back off lower price point guitars. The reason I'm saying that is because the lower price point guitars are the ones that needed the setups.
Right. And especially a lot if they're doing the factory direct. Like, I don't want to pick on Chapman, but the Chapman model where they aren't going through various levels.
Yes. And so what I can tell you is the ones that I always felt were the worst, always off-brand weird ones, that were always trying to price point, were always pretty bad. But the ones that stuck out to me were a lot of the Washburn electric guitars, which I think is why Washburn eventually ditched electric guitars and focused on acoustics, which is what they do now. Because, again, they didn't have the ability, you know what I mean, to QC all those guitars in the US after they got here from China and Indonesia. They were pretty bad. Ibanez, which I'm a huge Ibanez fan, but Ibanez is one of those brands that, and the lower price points can get really nasty, gross. You know what I mean? With guitars. Right. You know what I mean? It's funny to me only because Ibanez, to me, when I think of, like, it's the only one of the few brands that if somebody says, who does the best fret work? And if I was to name my 5 top brands, I think who does the best fret work, it's definitely like Paul Reed Smith, Grover or Jackson guitars, right? Especially back in the day, made in USA, made in Japan. Ibanez, made in Japan. You know what I mean? Those were the best fret work that you would see. You expect super crazy low action, no dead spots, always done really well. I always find Ibanez is the one that always makes me chuckle on that, because I can't say that without smiling when I go, oh, Ibanez does some of the best fretwork, because they also do some of the worst. So to me, but to be fair, because it's always nice to kind of have a more of an open opinion about everything. To me, bad fretwork isn't a brand per se as it is a price point.
Right.
I mean, it's hard to find a $199 guitar that isn't a culprit of some bad fretwork.
I agree. Here's a good question. It ties in with the t-shirt I'm wearing. Brian Landreth says, question for Phil McKnight. What is your favorite LPD pedal? If you could only have one, which one would you get?
Yeah, that's easy. It's a 68. And what's funny about that is, as many pedals as I have and collect and use, whatever, the reality is, and that's the whole point of collecting. We collect, right?
Yep.
As you get older, you work, you buy crap with your money. That's what you do, right? But there's also the other side of you, which is the pragmatic, practical side of you. And so, I say this so much, it's like a broken record. I use my Fender Princeton like a lot, and a pedal board, a little pedal board. Mm-hmm. And the reason I'm telling you that is my little pedal board, which is in the other room, has had the same setup on it for like 2 years. So it doesn't really change. And on it is my original 68 that I bought from Lawrence when I first met with him, right? The one that he came into my store, because that's how I met Lawrence. He came in my store one day because my YouTube channel was starting to poke, and he's a smart guy. He was like, hey, there's this guy on YouTube, and he happens to be 3 miles from me. You know what I mean? Maybe I should go in. So he walked to my store, very, very polite. He knew I was in, a store and it was business, and he wasn't, he knew I wasn't going to talk, store business. And he waited till I had a free moment, and he said, hey, I make pedals. I'm local. Would you be interested in checking one out? And I was like, sure. And so that pedal I bought, I ended up buying that pedal from him. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, a couple days later. And so I have that pedal on there. I have my Burnley, which is the Bogner pedal. That's my high gain pedal that I use on there. And then I have a Wampler Ego Compressor Mini.
Okay.
That I've had on there. So I have the new Lawrence compressor, and I like it more. but I haven't switched out because, like I said, it's a very it's just this board I haven't
Right.
messed with in forever. And I have a little Morley Maverick wah on there, and I have there's something else on there. What says it's wah, compressor, those 2 overdrives. Oh, and a Boss tremolo pedal.
Nice.
And I use that for everything, because it's my go-to setup. So that's my go-to pedal, and it has been forever.
I'd say for me right now, because I'm looking down, I have 2 of Lawrence's pedals on my board. The 87. I've been in a bit of a high gain kick lately, and I like the 87 so much I got rid of my Marshall head. So I will say that on that. Here, Marsman asks, do you still have your Sunburst Dane Electro 66?
So 66, I do not. The Dane Electro is a funny thing because, and that's the whole, when I came up with the whole, disclosing, you're saying like, hey, this is a product provided, this is an independent review, right? Which is the whole, independent review means I bought it. Product provided means the company's either loaning it to me or giving it to me. And I'd love to have, we talk about changing those icons to be more definitive when a company loans me something and gives me something. But for those YouTubers out there, or future YouTubers doing this, you'll soon learn what I'm talking about. It's a very vague when they do this to you. It's hard sometimes to get companies to outright say, yeah, we're sending it to you, you can have it. Sometimes what happens is, I'm really more concerned that I tell you guys that a company loaned it to me in a video, and then later a company leave it with me, and then therefore that's the lie. So that's why I leave it the way it is. I'm just explaining that logic. Sure. So the reason what I was going to say is Steve, who owns Dane Electro, which is a cool dude, he likes YouTube. And with me, I have a nice relationship with him, and the idea that he sends me like every Dane Electro guitar. All of them. If I haven't had all of them yet, they're eventually coming because he sends like almost every Dane Electro guitar to me.
Nice.
And every pedal. Now, when I say that, so I don't want to so I don't want you guys to be like, wow, that'd be great. Keep in mind what I'm saying. He doesn't give me all this stuff. He just sends me everything. I review what I like. He sent that Longhorn bass, and I was like, oh, I love this. You know what I mean? So what ended up happening was at first he would send me stuff and I would love, I liked it. I loved his guitars. But then I started noticing like, I really like my 59, this thing, right? So what I ended up doing was I sold the 66, I'm pretty sure, because he ended up giving that to me. And that's where in fact, I'm pointing at the one I bought. I bought this one. You get the idea. That 59S, I bought that used from Guitar Center. That's the black one. I have a blue one as well. I decided for me with Dane Electro that as cool as the guitars are, and some of them I like, and you'll see I'm about to review another one that I like, same reason. I really like those 59s. I don't know what it is. It's just in fact, when I was in Germany, I was playing one so much that another YouTuber ended up buying one while he was there. It was kind of funny.
Aaron from Albus Band. I fear we'll go a few more minutes here. Aaron says, ask Phil of his YouTube buddies who are the best 3 players. I say Henning, despite his lack of self-bravado.
Well, Henning is definitely the most underrated guitar player out there. He is a guy, for some reason, that most people don't see coming. But so he's a Berkeley grad. He taught guitar for many years, and I have watched Henning mentally talk to some of what I thought the best guitar players, probably on not only YouTube but in the world, so the world. I've been at dinners where Henning matches, them and his music theory knowledge. I mean, he's definitely got his stuff together, so I'm not going to say he underplays in his videos, but what I'm saying is he is definitely never pulling out full potential. You know what I mean? In the videos. So I just say that because it's just something I thought's interesting. He is the one I think that you'll never see coming. But I think when you look at, like, if I was to name 10 of the best guitar players on YouTube, he actually, I think, makes the list of people I see. And And then hold on, Lawrence just said Henning has a great ear. Yeah, he has a fantastic ears. He knows where the notes are supposed to be. Yeah, he's way more of a music theory nerd than he comes across on his channel. But anyways, that being said, so the question really was, who are the best YouTubers, right? The best players?
Yeah, in your opinion, because that's purely an opinion piece.
Sure, of course.
We don't talk in absolutes.
Yeah. It's I can just tell you some of my favorites. Jay Leonard J is a fantastic player.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Phil X was a fantastic player, or is a fantastic player, players like that. But I want to stick like mostly YouTubers, right? YouTubers, I would say Jay Leonard J's up there for sure. I mean, Steve Stein was incredible to watch play. Because that's where you get a different sense of people. Robert Baker, again, another player. And I mentioned those guys because I think what's funny about guitar players is, there's tons of great guitar players, especially on YouTube. But sometimes when you're hanging out with them, hanging out with somebody, when you watch somebody's video, it's been edited, it's been polished.
Sure.
When you watch somebody in raw form, sometimes, you know what I mean, you notice like, wow, that's a different, you know what I mean? I actually, all three of those guitar players that I mentioned, Robert Baker, Jay Leonard J, and Steve Stein, in my opinion, were better in person than I perceived them to be in their videos.
Right.
And that to me is what sticks out. And then Henning falls in that list too. You're just watching them play and you're like, wow, they got their stuff like dialed in.
Yeah. I'll throw in a couple on that one. I'll say Steve from Boston.
Yeah.
Good player, tasty player.
Oh yeah,
and RJ Ronquillo.
Yes. Well, I've never seen RJ personally play. I'm going to see him in a couple of weeks though.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Right on. Yeah, I was lucky enough. I got to see him play live at the Novo party when he and Rhett Scholl got their new guitars.
Oh yeah.
It was funny because all I could think of is please play some surfy ballad stuff that RJ is really good at. And sure enough, he plugs into a clean amp. I'm like, all right, I'm going to be the one guy in the room that's going to be so happy he's playing through a clean amp.
My knees hurt said Stein just seems like a really nice, honest human. Steve, the thing about Steve that I'll probably remember for the rest of my life was when we were all together at that event, and then we went and did the Rockin' 1000 event. That's the term, the cut of their jib, right? You know what I mean? You really get to learn people when you put pressure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To really sum that Rocking 1000 event up, that's essentially, it was like 12 YouTubers were given basically 72 hours to learn 18 songs and play in front of 20,000 people in the front row of a thing. We really didn't have, we really had to get it all together. Steve is definitely, you could see how he immediately went into mother hen mode, as I like to call it. I've said that before when bands and stuff. Steve was the first guy who was like, even though he had it down, he didn't need, he could have just enjoyed himself. You know what I mean?
Sure.
He had it down. He had no worries. You know what I mean? He could have just played. Instead, he was the guy who was constantly making sure everyone else was situated. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He was instinctively, when you sit, he would read people's mannerisms when he could tell one of us was struggling through the rehearsals. You know what I mean? Because you get to the part of the song, he would immediately take his focus with his guitar and point at you, make, you know what I mean? And let you, and then move his, and this is a guitar teacher thing. People who have taught guitar and bass know exactly what I'm talking about. You changed almost your position of your hand so that the chord or the thing you're playing is easier to disseminate with somebody's eyes, right? You know what I mean? You make it easier. And that's what he was doing. He wasn't just playing the chords now. He was playing them in a way that you could tell the definition of his fingers, where they are, what chord that was. I think, and so, and I don't want to take away from other people that helped too in that event, but I mean, Steve definitely sticks out. I'll never forget that, because I feel like we did great. I felt I did really good. And I felt like I did really good because of Steve and Henning, because Henning is the one that took some time with me in the hotel room to show me some stuff too, which was nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I think we can end it on a positive note here. I don't want to keep you too long. We both have work to do today. So
yes.
Do you have anything to add, my good man?
You know what? I appreciate Ben having me come on the show. I appreciate you guys hanging out, especially in the middle of the day. It's kind of nice, right? Yeah. And I think these are like some of the best things to do because it's a nice community building. You know what I mean? I think that's what the live shows are about.
Yeah. I agree. That's one of the reasons I started doing live stuff. It was a place for us folks that hang out in the chat to hang out with when our favorite YouTubers weren't already live.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the way I see it. So definitely. So, well, thank you very much, Metalhead Hippie. He says, good show. Thanks, Phil and Ben. Thank you very much. So let's see. Tonight is Wednesday. So off the top of my head, how about you folks at 9 p.m. Eastern tune into the Live Wires YouTube channel for Brian Stewart and Dave R's new YouTube show with a guest. I don't know who yet. And check that out at 9 p.m. Eastern. And I will be uploading a video later today for my Veda, the Vlog Every Day in August challenge. Check it out. So until next time, folks, hold those doors open. Let that guy ahead of you in traffic. Do good things, and good things will happen to you. Karma's real. I'm living the dream. Phil's living the dream. I hope you are too. So until next time, cheers, rock on, and be good to each other, folks.
Thank you, guys.